So Jonathan, this is the 50th anniversary of the tax LLM program at University of Florida.
Well, that's great. Congratulations to them. How long has the NYU one been in effect?
I don't know, but when I was at Florida, there were more professors at NYU who had gone to Florida than there were professors from any other law school, including NYU.
Oh, that's great, Alan. What a wonderful compliment for the University of Florida. Really, that's just great.
So I'm recording.
Well, Alan, you wanted me to say a few things about EstateView, which, as you know, I've gone through it pretty thoroughly with you, and my heartiest congratulations. I think this gives practitioners and advisors a tremendously powerful tool. And I'm just going to mention one. And in fact, you gave it to me just earlier this week at the Heckerling Institute. And that is that you can do a true comparison. It's not just saying, well, I think the client ought to do this, or you think the client ought to do that. But you can also forecast what that particular strategy might produce. And one of the things that I was a little surprised about, Alan, because you know I'm a fan of very short-term grats, is that even if you do a long-term grat and all you do is have a return equal to what the S&P 500 returns, you're going to move a tremendous amount of wealth out of your estate without any tax whatsoever. What a wonderful thing to be able to show a client. The client may be more sophisticated and say, well, I don't want just the S&P return. I want the Russell 1000 return, or I'm going to tell you what those returns might be. But just doing an S&P 500 return, having a standard advisor to tell you what you should do with your funds with the S&P 500 means over a term, you're going to remove a tremendous amount of wealth from your estate. Now, again, Alan, I could go on and on about why you still should do a short-term grat each time, because as you know, not every year are you going to have a tremendously high return. But on average, you're going to do extremely well with a grat. And your software allows the advisor and the client to see what that would be.
Beautiful. Perfect. So Jonathan, how comfortable can we be with a 2-year grat that pays out about 90% of the payment at the end of year one and another 10% at the end of year two?
Well, Alan, of course, there are no guarantees in the law, especially in the tax law, but there are a couple of things to think about. The regulations put a 20% upside increase in an annuity, but no downside. In fact, there is an example in the regulations where the reduction was about 50% in 1 year. And they just gave it as an example, indicating you can do whatever you want. But perhaps more important, Alan, as you know, I've developed language to completely protect the client by using word formulas. For example, if you're worried, can I really do a short-term grat, 2 years or 366 days, which one case at least impliedly approved, what you can do is to say that my grat will last the longer of 2 years or whatever the minimum term has to be. So the annuity interest is a qualified interest within the meaning of section 2702. You can do the same thing with the amount of reduction. The reduction shall be 90% in the first year, or the maximum percentage decrease permitted under the regulations to still have a qualified interest under section 2702. So again, there's a high probability that you can do it, but if you're nervous at all, please use those word formulas which are going to protect you.
Beautiful. Jonathan, do you want to just briefly explain the situation relating to a charitable remainder trust that's begun on a fiscal year?
Yes, Alan, that's a great question. Even though the regulations under Section 664 dealing with charitable remainder trusts require that you make the payments every calendar year. So if you start your charitable remainder trust in March or September, anytime other than the first day of the year, it means you're going to have a short year. And yet none of the commercial programs other than yours, Alan, gives you an accurate calculation. So if you start your charitable remainder trust in March and you say, you know, I want to make sure that I've met the minimum 10% value for the remainder, and you've run the number on another commercial program, you may get the wrong answer. And in fact, when I was doing my first really big a grantor retained annuity trust, I was having difficulty figuring out exactly what the gift would be, how much we had to pay, because we had to have the first payment at the end of the calendar year, and we started in March. I hired a brilliant actuary, and he and I called the IRS actuaries, and they said, you know, we can't provide you with the answer, because if we do it for you, we're going to have to do it for everybody. So what they did is they went to the lawyers at the IRS and said, you've got to change the regulations. And that's why for for grantor retained annuity trust, you can have the first payment date on the anniversary of your start date. They don't permit that for a charitable remainder trust. So if you've run numbers and you're sure you've met the 10% minimum value of the remainder, or you haven't violated the exhaustion test for a charitable remainder annuity trust. By the way, Alan, people should never do an annuity trust. They should always do unit trust. You may have failed. As a consequence, run your numbers on Alan's program. You might even want to spend the extra money if you have a wealthy client to have an actuary certify that that's it. But you also want to use a word formula. Really important to me. And your program gives the client and the advisor the opportunity to look at that. Similarly, for a charitable lead trust, you've got it. So, Alan, my heartiest congratulations on you and your staff producing a wonderful and powerful tool for practitioners and their clients.
Wow, thanks. That was fantastic. Very good. You're quite an orator.
Well, I've fooled a lot of people, Alan. And no notes, of course.
So when's your surgery?
My surgery is this coming Thursday.
Wow.
I have a lecture for the New York State Bar Wednesday afternoon, talking about artificial intelligence and the law, which, as you know, is one of my favorite topics. And then I'm going to spend the night in the city and then get up and have my operation. I've had my left shoulder replaced. Now I'm going to have my right shoulder replaced.
Wow.
I hope it won't be too painful in the recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if there's anything we can do to help, let me know. If you get bored, just give me a call. We can start recording podcasts.
That's great, Alan. I appreciate it very much. And again, my heartiest congratulations on what you've done.
Oh,
I
thanks.
think it's wonderful for people and practitioners. Have a wonderful weekend, Alan.
All right. You too, Jonathan. Take care.